Hi, I'm James, and this is just a demonstration on the Homology rigging script. So to start off with, all we need to do is click the button on the shelf or run from the mel script if you haven't got a button added. And all it's going to do is initialize a window and set up a script node. Now I mentioned in the documentation the script node is just where the rig is going to be kept, and if a script node doesn't exist, that means this is the first time we've run this script, so it creates one. And also what's created at the start in here is the global control. This is global control. It's going to control the entire rig, so as we create rig elements, they're automatically connected to this global control. So to start off with, we start on the fast tab, but before we get into this, we're going to go over each individual tabs first, so this fast tab will become a bit more easy to understand. So to start off with, we'll go the spine, and if you check all these different tabs at the top, the spine, head, arms and legs, all the layout is pretty much exactly the same. All that's changing is the actual names and the commands of these buttons. So the first generate tab is where you're going to generate a limb, and it says double click an item in the list to create a limb on it, or generate from grid position. So more advanced users can add things to this list, double click it to make a limb. They can remove items from this list, or they can add by name. And add by name is quite useful because as rigging progresses, there's going to be a lot of elements on top of each other. They're going to be quite hard to select. Some might be quite small, or the visibility might be off, so just entering the name can quickly add that into the list. So for the first thing, what we're going to do is just generate spine and grid position, and this is a prompt dialog box, so we can't click anywhere else. Maya's not going to let us do anything else apart from pay attention to this window. So what we're going to do is just enter a name, so we'll call this back, and then it asks us how many joints do we want in the spine. It has to be more than 4, and an even number is better because there's 3 controls, so an even number means the mid control lands in a joint. So what we're going to do in here is put 15, and this can actually go up to way over 400, 300 joints. It does get quite laggy after that because Maya doesn't like to handle that many joints, but it's just showing you that this can actually handle that amount of joints. So once we generate the spine, it gives us 3 sphere controls for the fake rig, a templated curve which we can't select just to show us where the spine's going, and it's automatically added these 3 controls to the generate tab, and it's done this for each one, so we know that if we want to go ahead and generate the head, we can add that on now. So what we'll have to do is switch to the edit tab, and in here we've got the selection, so we can select the root if we want to scale this entire thing up. We can select start, mid and end, so we can sort of quickly rotate and move this spine into position. Now you can see here that the curve is quite smooth, and this is just showing where the joints are going to go. So we specified 15 joints, so there's 15 CVs on this curve. If we chose something a bit higher or a bit lower, the curve's going to be smoother or more jagged. Then we can rotate the limb, just for a few quick rotations, or flip the limb, just to get into position. Now what we can do here is preset limbs, just gives a few presets to the users of spines. So this one's a dog, go to the horse, a bird, dolphin, or custom. Just move them between different presets. So what we'll actually do here is give this a bit of a bend, and we'll go to the convert tab, and we'll convert this to joints. And now we've converted this to joints, you can see that it's added a joint on each one of those CVs. So we specified 15 joints, it's made a 15 joint chain, and inside that it's made a driver joint chain and a bound joint chain. And what this means is the driver joint chain drives joints, bound joint binds to the skin, and this means that later on these joints can rotate independent of this inner driver joints. So now we'll add IK. What that's going to do is add 3 controls and a cog control. Now the cog control is centre of gravity, which is the centre of gravity of this limb. So that'll later on, that can be used to connect to different parts. And it's also added these three controls which you can move about, and which also has a tangent length. And you can see the spine at the moment is keeping that same length, which can be good for some type of characters. But for cartoony sort of stretchy characters who want stretchy IK, so you can click and make this stretchy IK. Now nothing seems to have changed, but what that's actually done is added a stretchy attribute to that centre of gravity, that cog control. So now moving these about, we can see that this spine is going to be quite stretchy now. And an added advantage of this, because this has tangent controls, you can see how changing the tangent of those controls makes the spine very flexible. So for some really flexible characters we can use this tangent to give even more control. So we've only actually got these three controls, but you can see how this can become a very flexible system just with these three controls. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to move on to the head. So we can now create a head joint if we want. Head control, sorry, head limb, sorry. So it's added these three sections of the spine again for less advanced users if they don't know where they want to add limbs. The most obvious place is the end, mid and start of the spine, which is where you're generally going to find your arms and legs and head limbs. So for this we will go to the end, double click that and we'll call this head. And again what this is going to do is ask us how many joints we want in the neck, and we'll say 5 because the neck really doesn't need that many joints. And this is one area that separates it from quite a few rigging scripts, in that the fact it asks you how many joints you want in the neck. Now most rigs only have about 2 or 3 joints in the neck, but as you start to get creatures like giraffes, the neck is quite long, or if you have some sort of fantasy creature you could with a long neck, having just 2 or 3 joints can be quite limiting. So this just uses the spine procedures again to just add a spine at the start of the head. And it's quite similar, if we look to the spine and head, they're quite similar, which helps users identify with the interface. So again we can just move this about, scale, do the same things. There's an added jaw bone and a joint head top, so we can move these about and convert these again, add IK, stretch it. Moving on, what we're going to do is just add some arms over here, so we can go to the back mid control. It's asking us what the name wants to be. We'll just name this arm for the moment, and that's going to go through and generate the arm limbs. And moving on to the arm limbs tab, what we can see here is, first off it just says generate left and right, so we can switch this to left or right if we want to just generate one side, but in most cases we'll probably want to use both. Now most characters are symmetrical, so if we started moving these about and we start positioning these, and we can start moving the fingers, we can usually get annoyed that, oh wait, the other side hasn't mirrored, and that will take a lot of time to try and reposition this in the same place. And usually with mirror controls you have to have it switched on at the start, so if you've already moved things about you can't apply that to the other side. Well, what we've got here is we attach the left to the right or the right to the left. So I've already moved this left side, so I want that to attach to the right side, so we just click left to right. And you can see that's mirrored our movements to the other side. And now what actually happens is if I start moving these about, scaling these or rotating these or translating these, this is going to get mirrored perfectly to the other side. And an advantage of this is we can separate this, control right to left, move that about, so we can flip it to the other side. So usually what we'll do is, if we've got a character that's quite symmetrical, we'll use this symmetry to line it up, and then use the subtle differences, like the hands might be slightly out of line on the mesh on the other side. So what we can then do is just separate the left and right, and then just do that subtle little differences. Another advantage of this is we can flip the limbs different ways depending on the orientation of your character. Select left, right, or both. And another advantage of this is we can rotate one limb, or move one limb. And what this will do is we can still mirror the functions over. So I'll just don't do that. And now under here, so just to reset this back to normal, I'm just going to get the left to the right again, select all these controls, and just zero them out to get back to that default shape. And what we can actually do down here now is we can blend again between different presets. So this is a human, and by default it's set to 1, just to let the user see what it actually is, instead of starting off like a single sphere in the middle. The user automatically sees it's an arm. So what I'm just going to do here is move these out a bit so they can be seen a bit better. So with this arm, I'm going to go through the presets. This first is human, got the dog, and we can blend between these in different ways. We've got the horse, sort of the bat bird type creature, and the dolphin. So we can blend and make any types of presets between these. The advantage of this is it just gives non-advanced users a quite quick reference of how the joints should be placed. So a lot of users will think horses have backwards bending knees, and that's a common problem, is that all animals have knees bending forwards. It's their ankles that are bending backwards. So just having this here forces or shows non-advanced users where these joints actually go. And these all blend in local space. So what we can actually see here though is if we had a human and start going that to dog, it's rotating down. So at the top here we've got rotate, and we can switch this off if we want them to all blend in the same space. And then again we can add that on later on if we want. So what we're going to do in here, we'll just set it back to human, and underneath we can specify which fingers we want. So which phalanx is technical term, phalanges, or thumb, index, middle, ring, and pinky. So we can switch whichever ones we want of these. So at the moment we'll just leave them all on. So now we'll move to the convert tab. So what this does is, once we've got the limb looking how we want to convert it. And you'll see all these buttons are locked. We can refresh this page, and all these are locked still. So what we'll need to do is we can only click convert to joints, left and right. So this is going to tell us, are you sure you want to do this? Yes. And that's just going to convert it to joints. Now, again with the track cater for advanced and non-advanced, you don't have to click all these. So orient joint chain will automatically orient them, but you don't have to. If you're an advanced user, you can go in there, orient them yourself. But for this, we're just going to orient these automatically. And we can see now it's greening these out, so it's telling us this has been applied, but we can't click this again. So just letting the user know it's been added, but we can't click it again because we don't really want to orient twice. We don't want to convert it to joints twice. So what we're going to do now is we can set up the IK controls. Now at the moment we have a long and short. Initially this rig only covers a short, just a normal IK system, but because there's some time for contingency at the end, a long limb has been added, which can also be found in the supporting videos with more information on that. So for this we're just going to use a short limb at the moment, and that's going to add all the controls in, parent them, add all the different systems, and light up these buttons here. So before we couldn't click stretchy IK because it didn't exist. IK didn't exist, so you can't apply stretchy to it. So now we've made IK, we can make it stretchy. And another thing is, if we add FK first, so for this right arm we're going to run FK, that's going to do the same. But what now happens is, if we add the IK second, it's going to come up saying, would you like to add IK? Actually, again, it's going to ask us what type of IK. We click short again, and then it's going to come up. This already has FK, so an IK FK blend will be added to the control, so you can blend between the two. So that's just letting the user know you're adding two systems, so we're going to add an attribute for you to blend between them. So what we'll also do is add the IK FK to the other side as well. So it doesn't look like there's much FK going on, but what we can do now is actually move this about so we're in IK mode, and as the pop-up window said, we have a switch attribute, so we can switch between the two, and that's going to hide the control that you're currently not in. So if we're in IK, it shows the IK. If we're in FK, it hides the IK, because we don't really want to animate with two systems at the same time. You're just switching between them. And now we can see this IK system working. And what this is actually going to do is, if we move this IK, we can now blend between the two. So switching that IK FK switch between 0 and 1, we can see we're blending between these two systems of IK and FK. Now, that's pretty cool, but at the moment we can't really stretch this arm. So we're just going to set this back to 0. And I want this to have some sort of stretch. So what I want to do now is just add the IK stretch, and we'll add the FK stretch, and we'll go ahead and just add the finger controls as well. And what this is going to do is, now we can move this, and switching this to stretch, you can see we've got this automatic stretch. And the good thing about this is, what I mentioned earlier, this global control, everything's automatically added to it. So one downside of having stretch here is usually when you scale the rig, the stretch is going to sort of get distorted by the rig, but because this global control is connected to the rest of the rig, the global control scale value is connected to all the stretchy values. So again, we've got the stretchy spine here, stretching these, we don't want to scale it to a value of 1 though, a value of 0 though, but you can see how stretching this is not going to affect the stretchy of this arm. And again, what we can do is stretch it on and off, switch between IK and FK, and we've also got, because we added stretchy FK, you can see scaling these controls, we now have stretchy FK as well. So now we've got stretchy IK, stretchy FK, and we can blend between the stretchy, non-stretchy IK or FK. And that's been added to both sides. And also we've got the clavicle control, which was added when we set up either the IK or FK, which has that clavicle control there. So now we're just going to move to the legs. So quickly moving to the legs, we'll just move this into a grid position. So put a Y value, a Y value of negative 30, and we'll just call it leg. And you can see that's going to create it on the coordinates that we specified. And now moving to the edit tab, you can see again the edit tab is extremely, well, it's pretty much exactly the same as the arm edit tab. And again, these use the exact same procedures because they're so similar in biology. We're able to just reuse the same procedures for both the GUI and the actual rigging methods. So again, choose left or right, we can constrain left to right, so we can move these about or separate, flip or select. We've got these preset limbs again, So we can switch between these different ones, or we can specify how many fingers or toes in this case we actually want. But again, the same over here, convert to left, convert right. We've got the same sort of setup, so I'm just going to rush through these here. So again, the convert tab is the same again, and again locking all these up again. And what we can actually do is if we just undo a few steps. So for instance, if I rushed that like I just did then, I can keep undoing and then just hit refresh, and you can see this is where the non-advanced users can click what they want, see what happens. If they don't like it, they can go back. So in that case, say like if I wanted the leg to be further out for no particular reason, I can undo those steps by hitting Ctrl-Z and just refresh the window, and it's going to update the buttons, so we can start reapplying these again. So we'll just apply all these. And another advantage is we can just delete the limb. So clicking delete the limb, delete at the top, just pops up the window, it's sure you want to delete it. So we'll just click yes, and it's gone. You can see in the top option menu list it's no longer there, and these tabs are now locked, so you can't edit them. And again, we can generate the leg again using the same name, because everything has been removed from the scene as if it's never been used. So we can recreate the same name with the same leg, recreate the same systems, because everything's been cleanly deleted. And another thing we can do is create multiple limbs. So we could create two legs, so leg 2. And what we can do is work on these at the same time. So now we can go to the edit tab, leg 1, changes these presets, change what fingers we want, connect left to right, flip this, select it, just do one side, whatever we want, and then we can just easily click the current limb to another limb. And I'll update the window, so it'll extract all the information from this limb to what the window should look like, and now it's connected to that limb, and it's not going to edit the previous limb. So this is a way we can work on multiple limbs at the same time, easily flip back, so it's going to update to this limb, start moving about, so we can just go between limbs seamlessly. And this is the same for the convert. If I want to convert left, convert right, you can see now we're just flipping between tabs, flipping between limbs seamlessly. So what I'm just going to do now is go to a new scene, and we're just going to rerun the script. And now that we know what all these limbs do, for more advanced users or customization, you can create your own limbs separately. For non-advanced users, and this wasn't initially included, so this is still a bit of work in progress. Some sections could be added to make it a bit better, but this was added in contingency, so this wasn't part of the original plan. So there's some areas that might need a bit more refining, but it's coming along quite well. So with all these in mind, the fast tab, which is the first tab, we will come up and it just says select preset rig. So I'll click to select, and here it's got a list of presets that we can choose. So we can choose human, and that's going to generate the user interface depending on which preset we select. So for this, actually, I'm going to just click Centaur. So the idea of this is advanced users can create what they want, or they can start with presets and then go in, start adding some more things. So if you wanted to Centaur with wings, you could create the Centaur here, go to the arms tab, add the wings, connect it up. So it's just as flexible as you want. And for non-advanced users, this is a really simple way to create the rig, because they might not know what to use for the front legs, because on a horse that's actually the arm limbs at the front. So a non-advanced user might think, oh, that's actually the legs, start creating different things, or they might not know how to set up the spine for a centaur. So this is just a quick way to show them how it should be done. So in here, again, it's similar like the other tabs. When you create a limb, you need to give it a name and give it a joint count. Some presets put in here like human back, human horse, but you can choose whatever type you want. And error checks run if you put no name in here. It says please enter a name, or if you use the same name, it'll prompt the user saying this name's already been used, you must use a different name. And just as a failsafe, you can't use joints under 4. So we'll just reset these. I'll put these a bit higher. So you can put what joints you want in where, what names, and then just click generate. And here we've got a loading bar. And the reason for adding this loading bar, you can see it doesn't take too long, but generate a limb comes up pretty instantaneously. But when you come to a centaur, or these presets, they've got like 5, 6, 7 different limbs generating at the same time, and that adds to about 5, 8 seconds. Depending on your system, it could be longer, about 10, 12 seconds. And that's just to reassure the user that actually those 12 seconds, it's not crashing, it's not freezing, it's just going ahead and generating it. So it's just to reaffirm the user, don't do anything, just wait and show the progress. So in here we can see it's created this centaur, it's automatically created the limb presets. So we've got down here, we just have the one phalanx, so the one finger for the horse. Up here we've got all the fingers for the human. And now what we can actually do is this is connected up, so we can move the back of the spine, and it's automatically going to move the legs. So we can move these about, change the spine. So if you've got some sort of centaur that's really long spine, you can move this about. And the same with the front legs. You can move these, you can rotate these, you can scale these, and you can generally do quite a lot. Move these about. So what we could do here, now that we've generated that, we can go ahead and again it's added all the different spine objects. So say like if we wanted to add, say like some wings to the middle of this spine, so this would be the horse back mid. We can just double click on that, create some wings. It's going to go ahead and generate the limb. Go to the edit tab, and we'll just add some wings. And you can see here it's changing the wrong one. So what we're actually going to do here is make sure that we're on the wings that we created. And that's just a way that we can actually create the preset. It's like if you wanted a centaur with, I don't know, flippers or something, you could create the preset and then go in and edit it again. So what we're actually going to do here now is we could create these, switch to wing, we could create the wings on here. So again, very flexible, could do what we want. Maybe I don't want wings, just delete it. So what we're going to do here now is go to the convert. So I'm just going to pause the video here and just convert all the limbs. Okay, so here we've got the human preset, and we've converted this to controls for everything. So we've got all these controls working here, and again, global control controls everything. Move it about, and we can even scale it. And just to show that stretch again, just going to stretch this out. You can see the stretch is still working, even though the rig has been scaled to quite a large amount. So the last section of this is connecting it all up. So at the moment, if I move this spine about, you can see it's not really connected to anything. So what we really want to do is, when I move this, I want the legs to follow, I want the arms to follow. So what we can do here is, we'll start with the arms. I want the arms to connect to the spine. So selecting items in this list is going to select the items in the viewport just to show the user what they're connecting to. So I'm going to go to spine 1, make sure I'm on the arm up here, and just double click that. So it says double click the item in the list to connect to, or connect to current selected object. So we can select an object in the scene if we want to connect to something that's not in the list. So it'll just come up with the connection type, so we can parent it, parent constraint, point constraint, orient constraint, or cancel. So for this I'm just going to parent, and we can see actually that's the wrong joint, so we can just undo that. And again, this is why clicking the item in the list and selecting it in the viewport becomes quite useful, because we can see which joint we're actually connecting to. So this time I'll connect the right joint, which is the 9th to the top of the spine, double click that and parent. And I'll just do this to the legs as well, connect, we want this in the first joint, parent, go to the head, and we want this in the 9th joint. And you can see parent constraint's been removed, and this is because we're not actually parenting the joints anymore. We want it to parent that cog, that centre of gravity control. So this is just where it's using the same procedure, but it knows it's a spine or it knows it's a head. So the parent isn't an option; it's just a parent constraint. And if I just move the window away, now we have a complete rig with IK, FK, stretchy IK, FK, legs, spine, head and arms. And moving this global control, everything is connected together, everything's all in the same place. This is all working. We can rotate this spine. We can start to move these elements about, so again, we'll select the chest control, move this straight up. You can see it's not moving because we don't have stretchy enabled. Just enable stretchy. You can see how moving this spine about rotates. So now we've connected the head, we've connected the arms. You can see how those arms and neck are going to orientate with this control. And again, quite a useful feature, the tangent. We can start creating some really nice effects on this spine. So again, for cartoony characters this is a real advantage. You can get some great flexibility with this. So I'll just undo all that. And that's just a brief introduction on the homology scripting, just how you can use the fast presets, individual limbs, create, delete limbs, and just reuse elements, reuse the presets, and just a really quick way to create and generate the IKs, FKs, stretch IK and FK for this rig. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And please check out the other videos provided in the submitted documentation for a few features on added features and some different parts of how they actually work. And actually one section that I have missed is the skinning tab, and again this wasn't supposed to be added, this wasn't part of the proposal, but from user feedback I did say, I asked users which section they would prefer the most, and skinning came up quite high, and because there's a bit of contingency time I decided to go ahead and add this skinning tab. So just a brief introduction to this. Again, it's still quite work in progress as it wasn't supposed to be, it wasn't part of the proposal, but this is just a way to show how, because this is scripted, all these joints are known, all this is procedural, how we can convert that into a quick and easy skinning section. So here, refreshing again, we can see the different limbs in here. I'll select all spine limbs. So each one of these tabs, this is the spine, the head, the arm, the leg. Refreshing that gets all the joints in the current scene. Double clicking this will select the joints so we know which joints is which, and all we want to do is So we can select all these different ones, and again all this is a scroll layout, so we can see all these different items. And this one down here is for the mesh. So at the moment there's no mesh in the scene, so what we'll do is we'll create some. So we've got a polygon here, so now we can go to all polygons in scene, and it's added that object. If we add surface, what it's going to do, add nerve surfaces, and again this is quite a work in progress, so that's not working at the moment. But one thing we can do is, as it's a character node, it's recommended to add everything inside the character node. So here you can see a group was added when we made the head for eyes, eye mesh, hair mesh, anything on the face to attach to. But we want to add models to this group. So by adding that to the group, now we can go to character node mesh, and you can see this is going to only load mesh that is inside the character node. So again, this is useful if you've got your character, you add in all your mesh to this character node. If you've got, say, like the scene around here, you don't really want to skin to the scene, and there could be quite a few elements, so just adding everything to the model group means we can quickly select just the model. So what we'll do here is select the joints we want, and again this is to make it easier if you just want to skin parts to different limbs, but for this we could just select them all if we wanted to. Select what mesh we want, and then we select which method, so smooth skin, interactive skin bind, or rigid bind. And as you can see, clicking that, it's going to select all the joints, select the mesh that we've specified, and it's going to bring up these smooth bind options. So if you pick the other one, it'll pick the other skinning method. So the user can now just pick what methods they want and just click bind. And that's a way of, again, this wasn't meant to be, this wasn't part of the proposal, but because users were adamant that this is an area that they really like, I just wanted to add this in with the contingency time, just to show where this script could potentially go in the future. And again, showing how these can be added, this could easily become an animate tab which has all the controls added, so the animation's quite easy. So thanks for watching again, and please check out the other videos provided where we will actually rig a creature mesh. So we'll be showing how this works to an actual mesh and just how the individual elements work.